What's up YouTube, Jay Travelani here. I'm here with you with another computer build. I'm finally starting to piece together my girlfriend's computer. I know you saw the case in a previous video, which is in her office right now. Unfortunately, with shipping delays and everything, I probably won't have the fans for another week or so. So for now, I got the motherboard, which I ended up going in the Asus Prime B450M. I've used this motherboard in a build previously with a 2700X, and for a budget of an $80 motherboard, which I actually got open box for $63.96 at Micro Center. I mean, it's a great little motherboard just for a budget build. I picked this up off a friend. It's a Ryzen 5. It's not actually a Ryzen 7. It's just in that box. It's a Ryzen 5 1600. He recently upgraded to a 3700X, so I bought his 1600 off of him fairly cheap for a good price, and he also included the RGB AMD cooler with it, which is nice. So I'll put that on the build to give my girlfriend's build a little bit of flair with the RGB, make it look really nice. I also have 6 RGB fans. They're Up Here fans. Anyone that's looking for budget RGB fans, I really recommend the Up Here brand. They're really nice fans. I've used them in multiple builds, come out really nice. They seem to work. I also have Up Here fans on both of my mining rigs, and they put out some pretty decent airflow for the price that they are. For the storage, you know, I just have a 256 gigabyte M.2. I wanted the speed. I wanted it to be fast boot up for her, be snappy, because she's used to using my computer. So I want it just as quickly with the load times. I went with 256 gigabytes and not a 1 terabyte, just for budget costs. For right now, this will be a great starter. Give her some storage, enough to start out using her computer. And as she keeps using it and starts running out of storage, I can always add a 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte hard disk drive as a storage drive for her later on down the road, or even see if the prices drop on the 1 terabyte SSDs and even go that route to keep it with faster speeds. But we'll get this mounted onto the motherboard and load it on, load Windows onto it. Another reason I really like the M.2s is less cables to manage. I mean, I know it's only 2 cables that you're cutting out, but it's still 2 less cables to run and manage up. But this power supply I just had laying around. It's a 400 watt EVGA. I'm going to start out with this in there because right now she has no intention of gaming, so I picked up a GTX 1030 used on Facebook Marketplace for like 30 bucks. Pretty good deal, and then just a graphics card to use, because anyone that does build computers, they know that the 1600 Ryzen 5 does not have an APU, so I did need a dedicated graphics card. So this 400 watt power supply should serve good. I do plan to upgrade the power supply when I upgrade her graphics card, which is probably going to happen in 3 to 4 months, probably time. When I upgrade mine, I'm probably going to give her my old 2070 Super, and then I'll just sell off the 1030, or sell my 2070 Super and get her a 2060 Super. We'll see what happens at the time, but at that point the 400 watt power supply probably won't be enough, and I'll probably look to get her about a 650 watt to 750 watt one. But for now, it'll run the GTX 1030 paired with the 1600 very well. I set the motherboards out. You can see it's pretty clean cut. One thing I did forget, I'll use MX4 thermal paste just to get the cooler and everything on. All right, so I got the CPU out. It looks pretty clean. Did an okay job cleaning it up with the thermal paste. I checked the pins. None seemed to be bent, so that's a plus. If it would have had bent pins, so the removal of this was done good. So Damien, if you're watching, good job. So what you want to do is you want to take this lever up right here. There's a little arrow down here. I'm going to match with the motherboard here just to seat it. For anyone that hasn't installed an AMD motherboard before, you don't want to force it. It kind of just drops in as you saw there. Then you want to put the lever down. You want to clip it in. So that's pretty much the CPU installation. Pretty straightforward. The Ryzen thing will sit like sideways like that. It's a little annoying that it's sideways, but you're putting a cooler on anyway, so who cares? And then this cooler, we'll do the thermal paste in 1 second. It's just going to sit like this, so you got to look at your motherboard. Since my IO shield's over here and AMD I want to sit flush, I'm going to install it this way onto the board, and it's going to kind of hook onto these. You'll see the little tabs on this side that it's going to hook onto there, and then you're going to flip this lever over to really get it snug onto it. So we'll do that now. All right, so with thermal paste, I like to do a little pea-sized dot right in the middle. If you do a little extra, it's not terrible. It's non-conductive compound, so it's not going to surge anything. If I do a pea-sized dot and when I put the cooler on, it spreads itself. Some people will spread it all over the CPU, and that's fine too, so you make sure it's covering all areas. I mean, that's a good method also. But I just do a pea-sized dot and then I install. So we'll line this up. I like to kind of hook one and hook the other, and then we'll pull the lever. So this lever, it's almost going to feel like to the point where it may break, but it's not going to. I've heard stories of people when they flip the lever it breaks. Just be gentle at even pressure and kind of just make sure it goes through and just kind of clicks to the other side. As you can see, I mean, I have it flipped completely over. So I went from, when I'm looking at it, from the left, and I flipped it all the way to the right. I did do it 2700X install on a friend's motherboard, and I got nervous thinking that I was going to break it. We didn't latch it all the way. Then he started running the thermal issues. So he kind of just, we said, screw it, just latched it all the way. It didn't break. It was fine and actually fixed all his thermal problems. So if you feel like you may break it, just kind of, you just have to ease into it and slowly put the pressure onto it. Don't just slam it, because that's when stuff breaks. I'm assuming the people that probably broke theirs probably just spun it real fast and broke it. So apply some even pressure and slowly turn it over. I've done, this is probably my 4th cooler install. This one, it's going to work. Okay, so the M.2 slots down here, you see there's 3 little spots that screw it in, and there's a M.2 slot here. So we'll just take out and slide in. You'll also need to go into your box, which this comes on with the motherboards. These actually, to my knowledge, I've never had one, but they do not come with installation hardware. They usually come with the motherboards. But you'll need this little piece here. And I use precision screwdriver, like a cheap Stanley set. They work just fine. But you're gonna take the screw out, put the riser, this little tiny riser, onto the motherboard spot, depending on the size of your M.2. Most of them I get are 2280 M.2s, and which is usually the longest. But we'll put the riser on. You can eye it up. Like, I'll show you in 1 second. We can just eye it up real quick. But these Silicon Power SSDs, I mean, I get these on Amazon. I mean, they've served me pretty well for all the times I've used them. This is my first M.2 one. I use a couple of their SSDs. I have one on my mining rig. I have a ADATA M.2s. I mean, they're great, but the Silicon Power needs to make pretty good SSD. So what we'll do is I'll put it in, and it just folds down, so it's the middle one right here. So what I'll do is I'll putting the riser in. I can just let it sit there just like that while I put the riser in. And I usually just do the riser by hand. Some people will probably screw it in and whatnot, but I'll get my precision set. And just unscrew this out, put it on the table so we don't lose it. If you can have a mouse pad or something, or an actual mat, that always helps. So I just need to get this started. This stuff is small, so I'm actually gonna pull this out. Give me a little bit more space. I can get level with it. You do not want to cross thread any of these. So that's why I recommend just do it by hand. And then we'll put this in, like so. We'll get our M.2 screw. I'll hold it down. There's a little notch so it goes around it. Oop. I'll hold it down. Make sure I'm not cross-threading it in, and screw it down. So that'll hold it in place. So I actually, sometimes I'll turn a little, like, to loosen it, just to seat the screw in. and then tighten it in. But you'll know if it's cross-threaded or not. It really won't want to go in. But you can see on the motherboard now, we have the M.2 on it secured down so it won't come loose. All right, so we got the CPU installed, we got the M.2 in, so let's put the graphics card on. We're just gonna slide it in just so I can get some video for when I'm installing Windows. I have it all ready, so when I put it in the actual build into the case, it's ready to go. And one thing I did notice, we actually don't have any RAM. So I got some RAM here. I didn't have it in the original beginning, but I do have 16 gigabytes of Dominator 3000 megahertz RAM that I'm putting into her build. So we can go ahead and install this. So we're going to install it into the slots. And I will configure the BIOS once I get it up and running. I'll just enable the XMP profile just so that it'll run at the full 3000 megahertz and won't default to 2400 megahertz. But pretty much RAM install, you just line up the notches and slide them in. Wait for it. You just apply even pressure to both sides. Even pressure to both sides and wait to hear them clicks. So we got the RAM on, the power supplies here, which we can hook up. My fan isn't hooked up, so we do have to hook up the CPU fan. If you do not hook up the CPU fan to the header, you will just get error code after error code and you'll be scratching your head. So make sure that CPU fan is hooked up, or else your computer will not build. We'll have the 4-pin hooked up to the CPU power. And pretty much here, I don't have to run much other power. This can hook up right to the motherboard to an RGB header for the cooler. I'll do that later. Right now, I'm not really worried about it too much. I just want to get power to the motherboard just so I can install Windows and get it prepared. But pretty much, that is it. This Dominator RAM, you can see, I mean, that's just awesome looking RAM. It looks great on this motherboard with the gray. So I mean, that's it for this video. As you can see, I got it pretty much almost all the way built. I just got to get Windows installed. I'll probably have to move this so I can hook it up to power to get the actual computer turned on. Check out the following video, a follow-up to this, where I actually get it into the case. Once the fans are here and delivered, I can get it into the case. We can get it running with Windows. Hopefully my girlfriend gets pretty excited. She actually doesn't know this is being built for her yet. I kind of kept putting it off and putting it off, so she thinks I'm going to take forever building it, but I got pretty much all the parts in. This will probably just be sitting out, so hopefully she doesn't catch on that it's hers. So hopefully we can get a good reaction out of her when it's finally built and up and running and all the RGBs going and it looks really nice in her office. But thanks for watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon. Stay tuned for future videos of my crypto mining rigs and other PCs that I'm building, other tech tips or fixes that I come across along the way. But thanks for watching.